Okay, thanks again for staying with us on the show TMI Monday. Today is World Press Freedom Day. Information for public good is a theme for this year's celebration. I've got with me in the studio the #1 journalist in Edo State, Sir Roland Osakwe, who is the chairman of the NUJ Council, Edo State. Sir Roland, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Happy World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you very much.
Is the freedom really there? We'll talk about that in the course of the program.
Right.
I also have with us in the studio the Executive Director of Freedom of Information Council, Barrister Prest Aigbohan. Prest, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so how germane in today's celebration?
Well, today, May 3rd, is set aside by the United Nations chapter of 1993. It was conceived earlier. World Press Freedom Day was conceived earlier at Windhoek in Namibia. In that conference, there were African journalists and some other international journalists in 1991, organized under the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Then, in 1993, it was presented at the General Assembly of the United Nations. Then it was now passed that May 3rd will now be agreed. It's now universally agreed as the World Press Freedom Day. And as World Press Freedom Day, it is today to commemorate the journalists.
Okay.
The freedom of the press to be guaranteed and enhanced. Then it is also a day set aside to fight against any oppressive, tyrannic government who are not ready to give the journalists the space at which to operate. Then, finally, it is a day where we also commemorate and at the same time mourn those our forebearers who laid down their lives at the cost of searching for a story. So it is not a holiday, but it's a day that has been set aside to commemorate the press freedom globally. And this year's theme is information as a public good. Information as a public good enhances all indisputable and variable facts that can come to enhance the integrity of our human rights, to also bring about our public health, democracy, and other sustainable developments in the globe. Democracy, nations in the world are undergoing democratic governance. And in this essence, the press must be guaranteed, as in the Charter of the United Nations of 19, section 49 of it, that the press, whether you like it or not, in a democratic setting, that it must be guaranteed.
Fantastic.
Because it is the press that swallow fire while the people drinks water.
Thank you very much for that very beautiful foundation. Barrister Aigbohan, let's take your views on the challenges in entrenching press freedom to strengthen democracy, to strengthen good governance, and all of that.
Thank you. I think the first identified challenge is what we call the in-house problem. It's an in-house problem of the media,
okay,
which is between, there's an in-house fight between mainstream media and online media. And that fight is particularly bifurcated by governments to ensure that information is not actually churned out the way it should be. There's always a comment that online information most times has to be verified, it has to be reliable, it has to be trustworthy, it has to be believable before it becomes information properly so dished out. But those information we see on the mainstream media are just good to go. Those are already, it's an issue, it's an in-house issue. And the both sides of the divide are not ready to settle this cause. One of the side things that if it remains so, it becomes more important. And the other side also feels that it doesn't have any need to plead with this side to come together. That in-house issue is very, very important. And I think the journalists should sit down and settle it. Two, the journalists do not take themselves very seriously as it ought to be. Today is World Press Freedom Day, today is their day, and there's no, nationwide, there's no program to mark it. Of course, it's the government will not give you public holiday, because even if you ask for it, holidays are getting too much. But there's nothing stops journalists from gathering together to discuss issues that affect them.
I can tell you I can tell you authentically that the state NUJ have a program to mark what percent, because this is an NUJ council that is different. It's proactive, it's forward thinking. Maybe she just tell you now what is black.
That's a good one.
Let me quickly tell my friend that yes, today is a holiday. Maybe Workers' Day by the government. But today is our day as journalists.
Yes.
Who do we really have to tell or carry our fights to? Is government, the paramilitary, those in charge of security, those people who are even very, very outright in suppressing journalists. So these are the security men. Today, the commissioner of police, we have to beat him. The director of DSS and other paramilitary organizations. But we have decided to shift it to a working day, which is tomorrow. We are going to mark it with a rally and go to all these paramilitary organizations to tell them that the press must be free.
Fantastic. So you heard now. So build on that. Build on that.
We have a council of Senator Matthew Rohide, because we have printed shares and cap to that effect, and that was the cap I was putting on before I got into the studio. So somebody just came up and said, yes, a senator, a service senator in the state, said, no, the press must be free. That, do you have it? Yes, we said, we are marking it today. So just as you have said, my friend, we are going to be on tomorrow. If you don't mind also join us, we will give you
you already sent the invitation. I'm sure you will be there. So let's look at this whole challenge. Particularly now, I'm really pressed for time, but look at the current challenges we have in Nigeria, and then interface it with practice of journalism, information flow, and then interface that with the theme for the year, information for public good. Let's get your take on that.
Information as a public good. I think journalists in Nigeria, fairness to them, it has been also a fair weather. That we like it or not, assessing and doing a review comparatively with Nigeria and countries like Burkina Faso, where on the 26th of April, a journalist from Irish, a journalist from Spain, 2 journalists from Uganda are missing till now, just in the last 1 week. So it is. I think the Nigerian state is a good one for journalism. But journalists themselves must be proactive. For Edo State, for instance, I don't think there's any case of journalist molestation. The government molesting journalists or security personnel molesting journalists. That's also a good report. Because when you are praising, you must speak out as to positive aspects, not just criticizing. You speaking to positive aspect means that you are observing and taking note of what is going on. And again, information as a public good has come to also buttress. The theme of the year was actually selected in connivance with the pandemic, because with the pandemic, communication and information dissecting actually reformatted, because now journalists are not taking the information a bit from a distance because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course now means that information taken has to also be what? Verified, trustworthy, reliable, not only from online media, but also from the mainstream. Again, most media houses are shut down because of COVID-19. They have to work from home. Again, most media, particularly in Europe, have been arrested, have been detained on the reporting on the pandemic. So sharing information on the pandemic itself is not a problem. Are we getting it now? So again, the media perspective of COVID-19 is also a cause for concern. You giving us information on death toll, giving information on those who are ill. You're not giving us information as per item budgeting of curtailing the pandemic, which is important. Because a loan and all that have been taken, or money that have been donated, has to also be tracked. We're not only interested in coffins. We're also interested in what issues.
Now, press freedom is such a big issue. I mean, we can talk about this for hours on end, but let's look at access to information as a challenge in the practice of journalism.
All right. Before I tackle that aspect, I want to add to what he has said, because this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of our members have been laid out of office and detained, arrested. Then a lot of media houses has also been shut down, just as they have said. We agree to that. But the scientific way at which journalists report also calls for this theme of this year, information as a public good. Then, coming to that, a lot of, it has been very fair for those of us in Nigeria. Nigeria is not among the countries who does not want to see journalists. Countries like China, Vietnam, Cuba, and so many others, Boas and others. But it has been very fair because of the FOR Act, which journalists can rely upon. Because the FOR Act has given us the impetus at which to dig deep into informations which government may have wanted to conceal. That one is already there. It has given us a guarantee. But what journalists are actually against is that when public issues come up, like an assignment where members will be trampled upon, or the fourth estate of the realm not recognized when public issues are being discussed. These are the areas we frown at. Because although it has been fair in Edo, but I tell you in some states, they may not want to see journalists. Like the Director General of UNESCO, in charge of the Director General of UNESCO, Adre Azola, said it is the verification. It's an undisputable fact to ensure that the verification of the story is blown down by journalists, that when it is disseminated, it will have no controversy. So all these are some of the things journalists are trying to do to ensure that the press, as the fourth estate of the realm, will have an independence irrespective of any other arms of government. Because we are there to monitor the activities of government and report to the people, and report the people to government in the areas where they are lacking infrastructural development. So that is why the theme for this year, information as a public good, is act, and we must ensure that nobody is left behind, particularly as we are in a democratic setting in this part of the world.
Okay, let me get a final word from Vice President Agboha, particularly against the background of the insecurity challenges in the country. I saw the message by Mr. President to the media that they should use their office to engender public good in line with the theme. I'd like to get a perspectives on that, looking at the fact that sometimes it's difficult accessing information. You have been doing a lot of research in that direction on the Freedom of Information Act, accessing information. Let's get your perspectives on that.
I feel very strongly that media houses have not used the FOIA as it ought to be. Most persons who are using that law are mainly NGOs practitioners. We have intervened in so many respects to asking for review of those requests. Majorly, if you write to any MDAs, government parastatals, most likely 99% won't get any response. Of course, it's that the law states the procedure for which you can get initial review. So, information as a public good need more emphasis on freedom of information as a law. Very important, information as a public good, as per security and all that. Most security details you get are majorly from online reporters before you now transmit to mainstream. Therefore means, as I have identified, the in-house rivalry.
Okay.
They have to reconcile that. But strangely, today marks 30 years, 3 decades of Windhoek Declaration of free media, pluralistic media, and all the rest. And it created a provision for media houses to register, have a right to have a group. But strangely, applying that Windhoek Convention by journalists means abdicating the online media. As it stands today,
because they are not registered.
Yes, there's no online chapel in Nigeria. You know, journalists, and that itself affects information as a public good. So they should go back, reconcile that in-house for public good, because information is not now for journalists' good, but it's for the public.
Absolutely.
If the journalist is just the holder and the disseminator, the public are saying accept this this
online.
B batch or the 40th.
How feasible is that against the background of the confliction that you see?
As a matter of fact, let me acknowledge what you have just said. The social media, the online media, yes, there are some journalists.
No, can you just round this off with one minute?
Okay.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, those people who are bloggers, most of them are not journalists. That you can write a story, there is a prerequisite at which you must attain before you become a journalist. And you have to at least OND in mass communication or journalism. But if you say you are a blogger, that does not make you a journalist, because you can write from the confines of your house or from your house. But the real information, the prerequisite at which to write a story, if they are there, but are you a journalist?
Okay. That's a matter for another day.
So,
let me thank you. Let me thank you for coming. Let me thank you guys for coming. Vice Pres Egboka is the Executive Director, Freedom of Information Council. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And of course, the #1 journalist in Edo State, Sir Roland Osakwe, Chairman, Nigerian Union of Journalists, Edo State Council. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a short break. I'll be back on the other side of TMI. Don't go away.